Today, we are checking out the collaboration between Highwind Amplification and Pepers Pedals, the Fire and Sword Preamp. So it's cool to see collaborations like this, and it doesn't happen very often. And it's between two pretty cool dudes. You got Pepers Pedals, who's known for, of course, the Dirty Tree and a bunch of other cool stuff. And, of course, the Dire Wolf from Highwind. And they came together and they made this, and I think that's pretty awesome. And I actually was lucky enough to run into Jordan at NAMM, finally put, a face to the man and the brand. And I actually got to try out his new prototype Highwind amp. And that Torrent amp absolutely chugged. Everyone was digging it. I know Sammy from Goat Horror played through it a bit, as did Gary Holt. I mean, the legend, the myth, the man, the legend. And they were at that booth, and they ended up enjoying it too. I really liked this through Sammy's signature Arachnid cab with those DV77s, which I'm very partial to. Sounded killer. So anyway, about the pedal. So it is a preamp pedal based around an orange rockaverb, which you don't really see very often, but Jordan is very much a big fan of that. And I feel like, and he does too, that it's one of those high gain amplifiers that's kind of passed on by a lot of metal guys, because it's not traditionally either like a 5150 dual rack or some sort of like Marshall kind of style amplifier. But it's definitely got its own thing going on. Very saturated, very low mid-rangey, which is why I think so many sludge guys and like doom guys really dig it. But plenty of metal guys have used these. I mean, I mentioned sludge and doom. I mean, Matt Pike has been known for using orange stuff off and on for years. But I think most famously, Jim Root from Slipknot uses these amps and has for a really, really long time. And, Brent Hines from Mastodon used them until really recently when he switched to Victory. So they definitely do the metal thing. But they need a boost. And that's where the other side of this pedal comes in, that you can actually use independently if you decide to. It has two different boosts built in. It has either the Dirty Tree or the Dire Wolf. Now you can foot switch the boost on and off, and there's a toggle switch to switch between which boost you want to use, and then there's an internal switch to make it so you can stack it or use it separately. And then there's also, I believe, some game pots that control some of the parameters of the boost, but I didn't mess with those at all. I just use it exactly stock how it came, and also because I just liked how it came from them. But that really turns this thing into kind of like a doomy, sludgy kind of thing into just an absolute high gain riff monster. And you'll notice too, when I show you how this thing sounds out of a mix, the Dire Wolf has so much more volume on tap than the Dirty Tree. It's not knocking the Dirty Tree. The Dirty Tree is, based on a very tried and true circuit. Just the Dire Wolf has buckets of volume. I almost thought something might be wrong with the Dirty Tree until I cranked it all the way and then realized just back off the Dire Wolf a little bit. You definitely don't need to go much past noon on the Dire Wolf to get this thing into chug territory. So let's go over some of the features. Like I said, there's the foot switchable boost, and you can switch between which one you're using. And there's a dead simple, like you just essentially have the volume pot for the boost. You're just how much of the boost are you getting. There's your level control, bass, middle, treble, and of course your gain control. And then, like I said, those internal controls as well. And that's it. You just plug this into a power amp section or your IR, you're ready to go. And one other quick tip too, before I go into the in and out of mix, is I was actually having some problems getting this thing to sound the way I wanted to. I was having like a big volume problem, having to like crank everything, and that just ended up sounding good. And it was because, again, I ran into Jordan and NAMM. He ended up plugging one of these into a KSR PA50 as well and was having that same volume drop. And they realized, because there was no buffer with this pedal, it was having a bit of an impedance issue. And so its level was coming out super low. So he was like, oh yeah, just try a buffer after it. I think that's probably going to fix it. So I did. I tried throwing my Wazacraft Metal Zone after it. Totally fixed the issue entirely. So if you're having issues with that, it might just be that you need a buffer after it. Or if you haven't noticed, it's probably because you already had a buffer after it and everything was fine, or it went into a buffered effects loop or what have you. But just wanted to throw that out there, that was an issue that I had, and that was a really easy solution for it. So that's absolutely enough talking about this thing. Let's actually hear this thing inside and outside of a mix. I'm going to have this go into my KSR PA50, which is then in turn going to go into my Two Notes Captor X, which has an IR blend of my DV77 and VM1265 speakers. And we'll hear it outside of a mix all on that same setup. And I'm going to be plugging into this with my Solar G-type guitar, which is currently loaded with some Wraith pickups from Guitar Marie that really work good for this setup. Let's check it out. So it definitely does that orange thing, that super saturated, really thick, kind of low mid-range thing. Without the boost on it, definitely is really, really sludgy. With the boosts, you definitely get a lot more like modern high gain metal, especially with, I found that the Dirty Tree was a lot more like kind of dry, percussive, kind of tight. And if you just wanted the super saturated, like balls to the wall, you went with the Dire Wolf. And both definitely have their uses, both feel really good to play. The only thing I think this pedal could have used was probably a presence control, because I did have to turn the high end a little bit up to get it to where I wanted it. But other than that, no real complaints. It definitely sounds like an orange. It feels like the different orange amps I've played. I'm very familiar with the two boosts, and they sound great going into this thing. So that's definitely a plus. Plus, if you pick this thing up, you also have those boosts to use with other pedals and amplifiers, so it makes this thing a lot more versatile. As you can tell from the in-mix music, as I said, that Jim Root was probably the most famous metal musician that uses one of these. I did my best to write some slap chop riffs. Slipknot riffs, and I think I did pretty good. Those came out pretty chunky. They kind of just fell out of me when I started playing on this thing, so that's pretty cool. But I would love to know your thoughts. I'm gonna have a link down below if you want to check this out. Highwind and Pepers pedals both have them up. So I'll have links to both. Let me know if you want to hear anything else from either of these guys, or if you dug it, or if you own one, what your thoughts were, all of that. But thanks for watching, guys. Stay metal.